Welcome to another Live with Courage special edition podcast episode, where we encourage you to listen however you like. Maybe on the porch with a cup of coffee, by the pool with your favorite tasty beverage, or our personal favorite, with your headphones on, tuning out the world. We are happy to have you here. Learn something new. Be inspired. Listen and visualize. Feel empowered. Live with courage.
Welcome back to the Live with Courage podcast. I have another guest for our special edition series. We have Sandy from Great Transitions for You. This is going to be an amazing podcast. I'm reading one of their books that I hope that Sandy will talk a little bit more about. But before that, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks so much, Christina. It's Christina, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, I'm Sandy Lawrence, and I've been writing books on transition for probably since about 2015. A little bit about myself. You know, I grew up working in the program, project management, portfolio space in IT since the 80s. Yes, I'm an old person. So, but really enjoyed that. And I've done a lot of different things. I've run my own company I had that going on, Geographic Sciences, for 12 years. That was an awful lot of fun. But I had to reinvent myself. I had to transition several times throughout my own life, through my own journeys. And I wound up, even though I am not a military person, I'm married to a wonderful man who's a retired Air Force veteran of 30 years and is still in the civil service market. And I actually met him there at SOCOM. My last 10 years of my corporate career, I would say, has been as a DoD contractor, where I would help both Central Command and United States Special Operations Command, both which have headquarters here at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. Work on IT, program management, managing all the projects and technology efforts that were going underway, and had really a great experience to help develop and provide capabilities. Oh, sorry about that. Capabilities towards, just understanding all the projects that were going on. But I came in with what is called a PMP, or a Project Management Professional Certification, that provides some declaration to whoever gives, an acceptance of mastery, so to speak. There's
Right.
lots of certifications out there. So I came in the early 2000s over at CENTCOM with that capability. And I was given the opportunity to build a whole project management office and select and bring in veterans who were now civil servants. And we all got them on the way and got them at the end of the contract, which was 4 years, to all get their certifications in project management. This was also in the time where the PMP from the Project Management Institute was really being, spun up in the government side of things. And we could see it happening more and more on job descriptions, that it was not only a preferred certification to have to get in there, but now it was required. And we're seeing that even more and more today. So before my contractor, Lockheed Martin, lost that contract. So did some other stuff in between, but then I got picked up at SOCOM for a 5-year contract, which was 5-6 years. Part of that was at NAVSOC over in San Diego. But basically doing the same thing and a little bit more. I really got into the strategy side of things, beyond the portfolio, and working directly with the CIO and the CTO and the other heads of the directorates. It was really an amazing process for somebody who really didn't have a military career to step into and rely upon. And I guess they liked me asking all the questions to help them, you know, clarify what they were trying to do as well.
Right. What
But
an amazing, just real quick, I want to acknowledge what an amazing opportunity
yeah,
for someone to step in to like the mission mode of the military and be an
right,
observer and get
right.
to learn things and ask all those questions. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I wish I had that job.
It was. In fact, I had a friend saying, you know, how the heck did you get that job? You know, you're just a little girl from, you know, up in Pennsylvania. And I said, you know, it's just amazing. I guess if you show your passion and you show your genuine interest in support of the mission and what they're trying to do, I think it helps. What I was going to add on to that is that as I was coming off of my career with CENTCOM, I decided to get an advanced certification at that point, which is called a program management certification. So this is where my geek side comes into play, you know. But I really think that that helped me differentiate myself when I was being looked at for the SOCOM opportunity, because they were looking for a strategy manager and who could do things beyond, you know, just project and program, but also portfolio and strategy. At the same time, I'm a big advocate of Project Management Institute, and I've been an active volunteer since 2005. The year I got brought on to SOCOM, I also was accepted as what they call an advisor for a year with a new group of participants who were selected for a leadership masterclass with PMI. And so I had already graduated with my class, so now I was helping this new class of eager learners, all volunteers, where we spend a year together and growing as a team. Again, a real sense of bonding to learn about the diversity of project management and personalities within project management, and how to learn to really listen and understand what that person and that personality type is when you're talking to them and trying to work with somebody. Because it's interesting. You keep on saying, well, you know, we need to do this, this, this. And sometimes you think they're not even paying attention to me. But what I learned is there's different ways of not only saying things, but then interpreting their feedback back to you. Again, the full communication circle, right?
Right.
So it was really interesting, but I was able to go to France, to Morocco, and also to Turkey, as well as several places in the United States for that year of bonding, which I'm still, it was over in 2012, and I'm still, we still meet up on a regular basis on Facebook and Zoom and all those types of places. I mean, it's a group that I would say is almost akin to having a military family, you know, like you're a group that you're involved with. So that it was just all amazing. And so I think my exuberance and my nuttiness for project management and certifications really exploded. And what was interesting is I really got a lot of guys and gals who were active duty that I was working with saying, hey, Sandy, you know, what's all this stuff about the PMP? And, you know, I'm transitioning in the next 12 months. What do you think? Do you think it's a good idea? So what evolved into those types of questions and sitting down with each of them on a one-on-one basis turned into a whole collection of questions. And I had met Jay, my co-author, at Central Command, and then he came on later at Special Operations Command. And we just started, brainstorming, and I said, I have all these questions. We built that team over at CENTCOM, and now I'm getting all these other questions from active duty. I said, we need to really pull this stuff together and turn it into, how do you transition out of the military in certain career fields? We're not the be all end all, but what we do know is project management. We know IT. We had some great guys who helped us with cybersecurity, and Jay's logistics from the Army, retired lieutenant colonel.
The interesting one to me, as I'm looking at the list right now, is the combat arms professional.
Yes. Now that was Jay's.
That seems very
right.
Not normal.
Right. So he had a really interesting approach to that, where he used because everybody's shooting guns. I'm like, well, how does this fit into our mold? Because we could certainly use some MOS codes and some other things that people were doing so that they could identify IT capability or project, stories that they could tell and put on resumes, cybersecurity kinds of things.
Right. Some of those are kind of easy to transition.
Right. But the combat arms is kind of hard. But what Jay came up with was really, really unique, and I think still undervalued, where, he took their S codes. Like if you were in, now you're going to catch me off guard, but there's there's 5 or 6 S codes. And so are you an accountant, a financial person? Are you, you do all these types of things. And so open your mind up to the fact that, you have a great military experience, you have great skill sets and characteristics, the leadership, getting things done, team mentality, all those kinds of things that we speak into the book. But then we also list, the area that you focused in combat arms. And what he did is he did a little twist on our model, but I think it was very, very creative. And he had some great support from some other Army guys. And yeah, so he did this combat arms piece, which was really neat. But they're all in the same type of framework that speaks to, here you are, you're transitioning. So let's think about your current capabilities in the military, and then go through a series of assessments and reflective activities to actually think about what you're good at, what your weaknesses are, weaknesses that you want to improve on, and those types of things. And we ask each reader to walk through this journey with us to help them build a strategic roadmap. And that's the culmination of each of those books, using a mentor and a coach. What's interesting is that now we're turning that actually into a one-day workshop with another gentleman who has capability. His name is Mike Callahan, and he has a really neat workshop called I Inc., where you really you learn to empower yourself and make sure that you're getting everything done that you need to get done during your transition.
So that's not focused on a specific career field. That's just getting yourself ready.
Right, getting yourself ready. So we've kind of stepped back and did the same thing. Coincidentally, we're doing it at a project management chapter, so it's easy for us to use our questions, but we've actually stepped back to build our other training to be more generic about any type of transition, whether it's transition from the military, or if you're 15 years into healthcare and you want to go into a completely different transition. I think it has applicability, although it might be premature to talk to, but I believe, we've all gone through major transitions in life. And I think what we need to do is appreciate the transition itself and set aside some time, whether it's these assessments or whatever, to really reflect and go through a process to understand, well, who are we now, and
right.
who do we want to go
I don't
to
think people
be?
look at transitions as that opportunity to kind of reinvent yourself
Right.
to who you want to be, like just like a butterfly. That stage
Right.
of cocoon, they turn to goo.
Yeah,
You're gonna turn
exactly.
to goo. It's going to be hard,
Yeah,
but what are you going to be on the other side of it?
right.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
agree.
We work too fast, we work too many hours, and we never really take enough time to think about and reflect about the transition ahead of us, you know, where we've come from and where we want to be. I mean, so we're trying to offer that through our transitioning military series of books from that perspective, which I think is really helpful.
Right.
So on to my current book.
Yes, I want to talk about this book.
Yes.
So this book is The Transition Veteran, Success Beyond Service. And
Right.
I really was excited about this because I love stories, and I love transition stories. So yeah, tell us about this. How did this come?
Yeah, well, you know, it's just so great that I have 53 men and women, veterans, who were willing to share their story. And the inspiration behind this is, again, which I think has turned into advantage. Again, I am not cornered into a service. I can't come onto your podcast and say, well, I'm a officer in the Army, you know, because it seems like it kind of pre-categorizes or sets me up for certain things.
Oh, absolutely. And
yeah.
I don't know why people do that with their elevator pitches.
It happens
too.
It's such an interesting observation. But so I'm agnostic from this standpoint. And given my passion for helping military transition, I just thought it would really be interesting to collect these stories. And, you know, I have to say there was a woman who asked me to participate in a Woman in Project Management book. And she was doing a collection of women from all over the world and asking a series of questions related from a woman's perspective on the field of project management in different cultures and industries and all that kind of stuff. And so about a year after that, I thought, you know, this is really kind of an interesting format where I could ask specific questions and get everybody to tell their story, but answer a specific set of questions.
That's my favorite part of
I'm so glad.
because I can, it's like a puzzle. I can be like, okay, question one, and I can kind of compare them and see where they're common and
right.
differ. And it's just more palatable. Like it's
right.
bite-sized pieces.
Yes, it is. It's very bite-sized pieces. I did specifically ask everybody to keep all their answers contained within about 5 pages. So, I mean, you know, if you think about it, you can read all the stories or all the answers to one person within 5 minutes or so, and then put it down. And then when you have another 5 minutes, you can pick up somebody else.
You didn't have any difficulty with them being too concise? Because we tend to be really concise and direct.
Yeah. Well, some are very good. You can tell the ones that have been briefing to officers for. Although it is interesting, some of the Marines were very vocal about, you know, what they thought needed to happen during transition.
I noticed that because I've read 2 Marines so far, and I'm like, well, okay then. Well, you just here. Matter of fact, I highlighted some in here. I just want to kind of.
Oh, okay. Jeez. Don't get me in trouble. No.
No, like this guy did a really good job. Rob Arndt.
Yes.
He talked about the rinse and repeat model.
Yes.
Seeking for jobs.
Right.
He talked about the shopping hungry, where you'll take anything.
Yes.
He was very direct. He talked about the buzz around all these companies wanting to hire veterans, and it's essentially non-existent.
Well,
like they say it is.
Yeah, and to that point, really quick on a segue, I'm going to do some type of an analysis with large corporations and their dedicated hiring practices for military, and see where that investigative effort takes me. Well, Rob is one of those guys that, you know, I hooked up with on LinkedIn, and he does this for a living. I mean, he's one of the guys that actually fully gives back to the military community because he helps people connect themselves to some great jobs. So that was one of my fun demographics up in the upfront section of my book, where, you know, I was reading all these stories and I'm like, man, this is a great story. This is a great quote. Or, I mean, I was just coming up with so many different little Post-it notes on the side from, you know, I'm like, oh man, I got to use this in an article. And it made me realize that I needed to do something fun with my demographics and observations section, which is what I put up front.
Right.
Kind of speak to the demographics of everybody who showed up. I had no intent on picking a particular service or anything. I did some knockdown, drag out days with lots of coffee, looking on LinkedIn and going through several different networks that I had to start pulling people into, you know, the idea, are you interested in helping? And I would say 9 out of 10 immediately came back and said, yeah, what do you want? What do you need? And it was just an overwhelming support.
We're always
system,
looking for an opportunity to make things better, to fix things. That's just
absolutely. And the thing is that, you know, we're all, I think all of us are wrapped around the concept of, you know, I really don't want to ask for help. And I think the military has more of a chip on their shoulder about that, because
no,
we got to do it. We got to do it ourselves. You know, we got to get it done.
Well, see, the issue there, it's not that we don't like to ask for help. It's we are given what we're going to be given for a mission, and you don't ask for any more.
Right.
So we just take what we're given, and
right.
We're like, okay, we're gonna have to figure out how to make this happen with the resources and knowledge and skills that we have.
Right, exactly. And I mean, which is a phenomenal characteristic or trait. But the thing is when you're, you know, transitioning and you're trying to figure out what's a good job to go for, in my situation, I mean, you need to go beyond your current network and start asking for help. I mean, an overwhelming response. I asked one question about lessons learned. I also asked a question about what would you have done differently. They'd be like, I'd be on a coach and a mentor ASAP. And I truly believe that. I think anybody needs a coach to cheer you on during any type of transition, because you're going to have ups and downs no matter what it is. And then you need a mentor of somebody who's already done it and been there and said, you know, yeah, this is a good idea, but have you thought about exploring these avenues? And you need both of those types of people to get you through this. And that was one of my big takeaways. And I actually have a big list of lessons learned summarized at the end, which I thought was really mind-blowing, because these guys all have, some of them went through a lot of crap, excuse my language, during their transition. I mean, one guy had a stroke, and it was just,
my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, other people had family traumas. I mean, so, you know, you can all say, oh yeah, they're
for us when we transition. It's like, hey, you're transitioning, we're going to hold everything off for you.
Right. It's not going to happen. And so I think they really brought some reality in their stories, and some of it's not pretty. And I think we need to be comfortable with the fact that, you know, it's not always going to be easy to get through, but that's what these stories are for, to help show the variations and the varieties of transitions out there. I mean, the support is becoming better and better each day with the services out there, but sometimes it can be overwhelming and you just don't know where to start. You know, I list a whole bunch of services that I read up on through all the stories of, you know, how people got through some things. I mean, so I think this book provides to me the goal of an immediate extended military network of people who have already transitioned over and above your guys, your own friends who are probably transitioning with you. And yeah,
or the one or two speakers that you get at an event.
Right. And you know, you can work with your friends, and you will work with your friends to get stumbling through things. Yeah, I did that too. Oh my gosh, wasn't that unbelievable? But the thing is this is 53 people that have already transitioned. And if one speaks to you, each and every one of them said, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm available for anybody to come and chat with me. It's just that unbelievable of a network. And that's why I'm so proud to offer this up and to share these stories, because I think if you find at least one or two that resonate with you, my goal has been achieved in helping somebody reach out and find out how they can do things better in their own transition. So there you go. That's my story.
That's an amazing story. How can people find these resources that you've been talking about?
Well, buy my book, because I've consolidated them, and then they're all available on the internet. See, the thing is you get your URL search bar, your Google bar, and you go, I want to look for military support. Well, you get 400,000 responses, and you go, gee, I don't know which one to pick.
Right.
Or I don't know where to start. So that leads me to what we're kind of doing with our training program, where we're trying to set everybody into motion to understand who they are and to better empower how they go forward in their transition and how to start off. I mean, there's definitely multiple parallel tracks. There's the military track of all the things you need to do, all the check boxes you need to check for, you know, finishing off your retirement and your TAP and your, you know, doing whatever. But then there's also a networking track. There's also figuring out who you are and what you want to do from a roadmap standpoint.
One right there is figuring out who you are and what you want to do.
Right, because unless you take the time to reflect, I mean, if you're 10 years, 15 years into the military, you've been pretty much told what to do for that time frame. Now, it's like being an orphan. You have to find a new family. So you have to not only be open to different structures and different, you know, things to consider, but then you have to find the right company and the right geographic location to, you know, put yourself in. So we go through all of that in our workshop, which is a one-day workshop. And right now we're offering it up for free at the Great Lakes chapter of PMI. So if anybody's interested, they can reach out to me and let me know that they're interested. It's a free one-day workshop. I think it's worth the investment of a day. That's if they're really interested in, you know, getting organized from a transition standpoint.
That's amazing. So yeah. Your guys' website is Great Transitions for You. It's GR8 TRANSITONS, which is transitions, and then it's the number 4 and you. I'll link in all of the postings and stuff with this podcast. So you guys have books. It looks like you have speaking engagements that you do.
We do.
Even coaching.
Yeah, well, Jay and I like to offer some coaching. Again, I do one formally through Veterati, but, you know, we've had a lot of success with we used to do lunch and learns over at SOCOM, where we would do small groups and kind of semi one-on-one coaching sessions. And it could be anything on filling out your PMP application to looking at certain career fields and career ladders or jungle gyms associated with different careers, looking at resumes, mock interviews, those types of things. You know, whatever's really needed. We do a lot of presentations and speaking engagements throughout the US at the PMI chapters and also at the global level. So that's kind of our niche, but Jay also speaks at some large conferences, especially from an Army standpoint.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, if you guys connected with any of the nonprofits and companies that are specific military focused type of entities.
Yeah, well, we need to bring Jay into the conversation because he's more on the speaking circuit than I am. But he's the military guy, right?
Right.
So and interestingly enough, we've spent about 5 years again, the last 5 years. We really wanted to get PMI to recognize the veteran as a member, a key member of all the chapters within the US, because they already have project management experience. It's just under a different name.
Right.
And what's interesting is that Jay and I started a grassroots effort first at the Tampa Bay chapter, which is right down the street from MacDill Air Force Base.
Right, I've been there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and so what we did is we really created a whole concept of not only a position within a chapter's organization. Remember, this is all volunteer, right. But we came up with the military liaison. And wrote up that job description. We started the dialogue on, you know, everything from budget to things that they could do within their chapter to attract other veterans in their geographic area, besides just recruiting them from the local base. And what was interesting is we actually went to a couple of global meetings. We got PMI Tampa Bay, thank you PMI Tampa Bay, to pay for our way to some of these symposiums and conferences, which we started talking to. And of course, the networking aspect, that's when we were most busy. We were going from table to table, getting introduced. We had a couple of key people down in Texas and also Washington, D.C., and there were particular chapters that were already doing stuff, but on a lower scale, a smaller scale, I should say. So they had some great ideas. I'm like, well, look, we're building this momentum. Let's all get together. And Jay and I kept it going to where in 2018, PMI Global actually and formally accepted the military and the military liaison as a recognized position for PMI. And they have done so many things since then. You know, they kept us aware of the Project Management Information Act that got approved, which was a big federal government act that was approved recognizing project management. And they've had major speakers that were inspirational speakers. I know there was a whole group of Air Force guys that came on and did some motivational speaking. And it's just, they have discounts for, you know, memberships, test taking, participation in the local chapters. So it's really evolved into a huge support program for PMI. And I'm very proud of that we've gotten so much support and recognition, because in the field of project management, it's clearly a career field that transcends any industry, whether you're going back as a DoD contractor or a civil servant. It's prevalent in any industry, not just IT, but healthcare, legal, construction, engineering. Everybody does project management.
Don't I know?
Yeah, exactly. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's to be said. But
I mean, it makes sense.
It does, absolutely. In fact, I used to open up one of my meetings and just say, everybody here does project management. I'd ask how many people are married, and most of the people would raise their hand, and I'd say, okay, how many have families, children, those would stand up, and I'd say, okay, so who gets the kids off to school? And, and I'd say, well, what would you do? And they tell me, I'd say, that's a project every day. Getting your darn kids up, getting them dressed, getting them cleaned up, getting their lunches together, and then coordinating delivery to the school and then pickup. I mean, every day is a project. That is a project.
Kind of frustrating for some folks that don't have their PMP and they're looking to get into doing project management because they don't know the technical words and the specifics of project management. Or even for me, I have a bachelor's in project management and they won't even hire me because I don't have my PMP. I'm like,
oh, that's interesting. I would think it would be either or. That's interesting.
They're like, how do you have a bachelor's in project management, don't have your PMP? And I'm like, oh. And don't get me wrong, I tried to pass one of the exams for project management, and I never took a course.
That's your problem. You really, and that's the kicker, is to find the right
I need a prep course.
Yes. You need the right prep course. And the other interesting thing from a veteran standpoint is that there are a slew of prep courses and organizations that are specifically supporting military. And,
I did.
And
I just can't, the distance learning, it doesn't work for me. It works for some people, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. PMI's changing stuff to where ATPs, which are their professional trainers, they're pushing them away from doing distance learning or online learning. So they can do their classroom base for the PMP, but they really want, PMI just recently announced that they want them to kind of adhere to their learning program, which needs to be embellished for, whichever group.
Some people are different kinds of learners. Like I'm
absolutely kinesthetic. Right. And I always have to write down things 3 or 4. Yeah, because I'm visual. And when I, have to recall something, I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote that in the margin somewhere in like crazy pen ink with a flower next to it, but I'll remember it, right?
See, I do processes and diagrams and things and to help me remember things when I don't have the ability to do kinesthetic learning.
Right. So I've acquired a nice list of companies that have a whole range of pricing, to one-man shows to complete organizations that are focused on the military, that, I've pushed to all hundreds of people, just along the way.
I was going to say, where can we find that list?
3 of them I listed in my recent article on LinkedIn, because I just started talking.
So we need to watch your articles.
Yeah, there you go. I just posted my last article, I think yesterday, on, the upcoming changes to the PMP, which is actually overwhelming. I said, you either need a backpack, because now it's not just that dry to read PMBOK, which is that body of knowledge.
I've got a copy of that.
But it's 9 other reference materials and books.
Wow.
Yeah, what? Exactly. So you need a phone with a couple of terabytes of space. But, you know,
yeah, that's where I got, had an interview for project management, and they asked me about all these project management systems, if I had used them. And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, how do you do project management? I'm like, by hand, like I was taught in school.
right, exactly.
But they're like, oh, well, we can't use you. Then I'm like, well, what if your computer breaks and I'd be an asset? Like,
Right. Well, and you know, you make a really good point, Christina, because I mean, when I had to build my portfolio management systems at CENTCOM and SOCOM, at first we were using Excel spreadsheets, you know, and you know, give me updates, and then we progressed to SharePoint because we did not want to. Well, they didn't want to spend a whole bunch of money on products that would be hard to change, especially given, you know, that that environment as a contractor. You know, your development can only last as long as your next 4-star general or, you know, head of your directorate, because once they're gone, they're going to, some new cat's going to come in.
absolutely.
Who wants to do something completely different.
And they don't wait either. They come in and like, we're changing it all.
Yeah. So, you know, it's actually a benefit to start with these really baseline systems that almost seem silly, but you can rebuild from those.
I love using just basic, it's no bells and whistles. It makes sense to me.
Well, it becomes a situation where you have to, you know, people can say, oh, I don't want project management because it's too much paperwork. You're exactly right. I mean, we need to be agile in and of ourselves, no matter what we face. I mean, and that's where the military comes right into play. You know,
I told them I could learn the system they needed me to learn. Well, yeah. How do you know that? And I'm like, because I'm prior service.
Yeah.
I have taught myself everything from Excel all the way how to edit videos and Photoshop.
Right, exactly. So it's you know, you still can't beat going back to the basics on a lot of things. And I you know, I've learned and even became certified in a couple of tools. But you know what? The tools were more of a celebration of, yay, we've decided to use this big expensive tool. And, you know, a year down the road, everybody's like, nobody's really using it. We only know about 10% of the functionality. And it looks like a big spreadsheet, which is what it was built on in the first place. Right. So, duh, we hit our head and had a V8 moment and said, let's go back.
I'm a fan of, look, I have like butcher paper. I don't know if you can see it. There's butcher paper behind me.
Yeah, I have butcher paper too.
If I ever get my own office again that I can actually like make mine, I'm going to have a dry erase board from ceiling to floor.
Yep, I agree. Yep.
People would come into my office because I still did project management when I was doing resilience and suicide prevention because I was building them projects and programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would have butcher paper all around, like, because I would be like, oh, I'd be sitting here doing something else come to mind. Oh, I need to add this, or I need to add that, or this goes with this. And
I am completely in support of that. I mean, every major position I've had, I've always been able to throw butcher block paper and Post-it notes up on a wall. And I'm like, nobody touched this.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just how I roll.
That's project management. That is very right there.
That's right. So it's just crazy, but
we could probably talk project management all day, but you got a busy schedule today.
Nah, it's all right. But you know, the book, I'm really excited about it. I've gotten to meet so many new friends and colleagues that I'm actually starting to work with on a regular basis. You and several other podcast guys have reached out to me. I'm just so excited to, share this book with anybody. And for any listener who wants to pick up the book, it's available on Amazon. So
Sure, I got mine. Good old Amazon.
Yeah, we're excited. And, I've even gotten mumblings that I should have a number 2 book to get more stories out there.
I told you I would co-share my story if you needed me to. I'd love to.
Yeah, there you go. I could have like a chicken soup for the soul version of this. Women in the Army, officers in the Marines.
You could totally have like individual books, like, women veterans or certain
split up the diversity. So if anybody wants to buy their particular,
you can have like
book,
a whole like maintainer, so like aircraft maintainer, vehicle maintenance, like all the maintenance guys or gals in one book.
Right.
That way when a maintainer picks it up, they understand it. That would be really cool.
Yeah. It's a labor of love, let me put it that way.
That's how almost every person I have met that is an advocate and a supporter of the military community, a lot of their work is out of sheer kindness and love for the community.
I'm really trying to reach out to the larger organizations like Recruit Military and some other larger organizations and just make them aware of this great book. I mean, I think it has a wonderful variety of stories, and I think there's something in there for everybody who is transitioning. So if we can get it into the hands of everybody that's transitioning through one of these bigger organizations, that would be great. I am excited to announce, I'm hoping that next week or before Christmas we'll be launching an ebook version of this. But I'm a fan of paper, so
I like to write in my books.
Yes, I like to write in the margins and, dog ear the corners and put Post-it notes in there and really mess it up.
You're one of my people.
Back at you, girl.
So before we finish off this podcast, is there any final words that you wanted to say or?
Well, I just really appreciate what you're doing as well, Christina. I think suicide prevention is very important in any aspect. And I just feel like we're heading into some crazy days over the next few years as a country. And I think we need to be grounded in the fact of who we are, and we're here together. And that's one of the things that I always go back to, is that the military has such a strong bond and network. And I appreciate being protected every day. And I think the children lose that fact. And so the more we can touch on that and understand what we have as a country, I'm really an advocate of stopping and smelling the roses. And if you see somebody in the service, it's important to just stop and shake their hand, or at least just acknowledge to them that what they've done, no matter what it is greatly appreciated. So thank a veteran.
Yes. Thank a veteran, thank an active duty service member.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's amazing.
There you go. Good.
Well, this has been a wonderful special edition episode of the Live with Courage podcast. Thank you, Sandy, so much for being here with me.
Thank you very much.